Beep 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 dee 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 down now. Oh, sorry. I'll stop now. I'm sorry. I've got that bloody Sonic theme in my head, and I tell you what, the way the football has kicked off in the early days of these Olympics, something tells me the players are being controlled by someone playing a video game somewhere. It literally does feel like fantasy style football. More on that in a moment. So technically the games are off and running, even though there's been no opening ceremony. That happens tomorrow. And bearing in mind how nutty Japanese culture can be, I think expect the unexpected. But technically the games have not started, I guess, because they don't really start till the opening ceremony, but there has been plenty of kicking, footballs that is, and plenty of playing other stuff, but not any proper sports, because let's be honest, football doesn't really count because it's the Olympics. It's not a proper Olympic sport. I'm going to watch it anyway, of course, but it technically doesn't count. And something called softball / baseball. Is it baseball? What's the difference? Someone tell me. Softball, baseball? I have no idea. I'm just going to assume they're the same sport. Or maybe softball is baseball with a softer ball. Maybe that's a safe pick. So welcome to my first video for these Tokyo Olympics. Much anticipated. The Olympics, of course, only happen every 4 years / 5 years. Scrub that because it is 5 years in this case. And for some reason, they still call them Tokyo 2020. They still put the 2020, even though it's happening in 2021. I guess because it's only a year, they can sort of get away with it. But if it was any later, if it was like next year, then boy, that would really look bad to put in 2020 still. But lazy kids, they only have to cross out like the 0 on the end and just put a 1. For God's sake, guys, get with it. Same with the football Euros when they were 2020 called that. So the show technically is underway, although not exactly as I said. There has been some kicking of the football. There has been some throwing and batting of the softball. And I'm in the mood because the Olympics is a unique event. It happens only every 4 years / 5 in this case. And even as a cynic, even because I think when I grew up, I didn't really watch the Olympics, and I was so, stuck in my ways. Imagine me saying that, sounding like I was 50. In reality, I was in my teens. But, football and wrestling, pro wrestling, that is, when it came to sports, I loved them. I didn't really love anything else. So it probably took a long time for, Olympic fever to really get into my veins. But I think it was the Beijing Olympics 2008 onwards where it became a must watch from then on, because it's just this ultimate of sports and achievement, and just brings everyone together, the diversity. Because I think the thing with football, even though it's much loved across the world and is this really standout sort of game that just brings so many cultures together, and obviously you see the reaction in the country in the UK, for example, when England did really well this summer. It definitely does bring people together, but I think it still has that feel of something very sort of niche. Probably the biggest niche thing, but it still has that sense that you either love or hate football. So if you're not a big football fan, you probably do dread the 4 weeks when the Euros or the World Cup is on. But I think it's probably fair to say that people don't feel the same way about the Olympics. I think there is just something about the Olympics that captures the imagination. And for me, it's like the bizarreness of it. I mentioned obviously the classic Olympic events like the athletics and javelin, certain events like that, running, swimming, I guess, is another one. And obviously, I think they are all staples and sort of things that you must watch for your Olympics diet, folks. But I actually think part of the magic, part of the beauty of the Olympics is getting caught up in random sports than you wouldn't normally watch. So there's just something about the curling that got me engrossed a few years ago. This bizarre sport which when I heard about it, when I heard what it involved and saw what it involved, and there's just something so surreal and bizarre, like a madman thought it up, like it's a sort of a road sweeper's like wet dream. It just caught my imagination. It's like it's so weird, and they're putting so much effort into this weird sport. Then I actually got hooked on it, and I actually got engrossed in the curling. God damn it! And it pisses me off because I don't think there's any curling this year, which just makes me mad. I mean, what were they thinking? But stuff like hockey. I really got engrossed in the hockey a few years ago. Obviously, the year Team GB won, 2012, was fantastic. One of the highlights of that games, and I love watching hockey at the Olympics. I enjoy watching basketball at the Olympics. So I just get hooked in. I know someone was slagging off like sailing the other day, saying that's a boring sport. And okay, technically, to watch it's not the best spectacle. It's kind of this snobby, like upper class type sport that maybe doesn't belong at the Olympics. But you know what? If it's on, I'm gonna watch it. So that's what the next 2 weeks are going to be about. Me bringing you my reactions on this channel. I'll be watching as much of the Olympics as I possibly can. I will be live streaming on this channel and also on my other channel, well, my main channel, Bored Now, but mostly this channel, as much as I can, and also doing videos like this with just random thoughts on the Olympics. Obviously, one of the most bizarre Olympics ever, probably the most bizarre because of COVID. There's already been casualties, so that's obviously terrible to hear straight away. But just a very bizarre one. No spectators, the whole atmosphere, all the regulations than the athletes are going through. But hey, it's here now, and I for one am very excited. And we've already had some bizarre results in the football, some weird sort of action. That Team GB are off and running. They've got an early win in their group, 2-0 against Chile, which was important for them to get. When I say when I say GB, I actually mean the women, because the men aren't bothering. I guess because of the Euros and with the Premier League round the corner, the men haven't sent a team. So screw you guys, how dare you? You could have just sent a second string team if you want. I'm sure that's what some countries have done who were involved in Euros, but yeah, screw you guys. But the women have bothered to show up, and they're off and running 2-0 against Chile. And they're in a tough group because they've also got Canada and they've got the host nation, Japan, to come. So 2 tough games to come. So it was important, and they got off to a good start against Chile. And it was sort of an edgy beginning. I think first 20 minutes, Chile set out their stall to be really difficult to play against, really physical. It was sort of fitting that Ellen Wright got like bundled off the ball in the opening seconds. It's like, yeah, we're here to street fight. They set out their stall, and for the first 20 minutes, Chile did make life quite tough for England, Freudian slip, Team GB, mix of Scots, Welsh and English, I'll just add there. But yeah, after a while, England did settle in, and the goal definitely settled them down. Ellen White off the mark, and she of course got both goals. So that's really important for her, so that she doesn't do a Harry Kane at the start of this tournament, off and running 2 good goals. And England were just really professional, really impressive. Their movement off the ball, the way they moved the ball across the flanks, sort of good pace, good movement down the flanks. The fullbacks or the wing backs, if you like, were really impressive. The wide players. And yeah, Lauren Kemp looks a real prospect. I know she's only 19, but kind of bizarre the way the manager randomly switched her to the other side after half time. Don't quite get that one. He ended up taking her off, but very impressive. And also worth pointing out, then Lucy Bronze for both goals, set up both goals. Her brilliant dinks to the far post, especially the second goal for White, and obviously White herself to get those two goals. But yeah, Team GB looking good, off to a good start, and I think they will qualify from the group, because in the women's competition it is actually, well, the top two at least, and then in some cases the best third place side. So you would say Team GB should at least make that. And 1-1 was Japan and Canada in the other game, so very interesting. I saw a little bit of that game. Canada were a goal up at half time. Japan had most of the ball in the first half, but they struggled to do anything with it. They were actually very sort of slow and sluggish in the way they played. And Canada had basically one chance and took it. It wasn't the best of games, but they took their chance and they defended well. Obviously, Japan eventually got back into it. So probably a draw about right, but that's obviously not bad going for GB, the fact that they both drew, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, England looking to improve at this tournament. They got to the quarterfinals, if you like, quarterfinals at London, and that's another bizarre thing. GB haven't played in the Olympics since London because of, guess what, politics. So it sort of feels bizarre, because the last time they played in the Olympics, Alex Scott was still playing, who now is presenting the coverage in the studio. Her and Casey Stoney, it was sort of a smooth, laid-back vibe they were going for, which I quite like. Came across as two friends chatting. I think Scott was a bit nervous. You could see that at the start. It felt like she was sort of reading from the script a little bit, which I guess is natural because it's like her first time presenting. Obviously doing a lot of punditry, but actual presenting. But once she got into a groove and, she settled down, I thought. So, good stuff. I should just say, the coverage opens and you've got this really bizarre, hyper video game style thing with the opening video package for the BBC. So you've got some of the top athletes in the world with in video game form, video game characters and sort of toys and stuff like that. So that's the BBC's opening intro for the Olympics this year, and I'm sure it'll look tame when compared to the opening ceremony, which I will report on tomorrow. But anyway, yeah, good start for GB, but some bizarre results out there. We've already had our first sort of upsets, or the big one, in fact, I guess two. I mean, the favourites, USA, losing to who did it? Who did the USA lose to? It was yesterday. I'm sort of forgetting myself. Okay. Sweden, of course, Sweden. I'm sorry, folks. I had to look it up again. Sweden, 3-0. I mean, for it to be 3 is just amazing. Even if you had said, yeah, Sweden have got a chance, you never would have thought it would have been that one-sided. But you know what? They had a game plan, and it worked to perfection. It was quite the marker to lay down. I'm sure USA will still be fine getting out of the group. Australia and New Zealand are in that group, so that's interesting. They both drew, but USA obviously favourites. One of the interesting things from their point of view is that Megan Rapinoe didn't start. They brought her on with about 20 minutes to go. I guess they're holding her back for later in the tournament, but yeah, shock results, and the shock sort of continue today because France lost after having a pretty rubbish Euros, you have to say, considering they went in as favourites. They lost to Mexico. So Mexico with an impressive 4-1 win over the French. So really good stuff. And I hear that Mexico are a pretty strong team, certainly for the Olympics. So maybe they could do something. The big aim of the day potentially was Brazil-Germany, and it didn't disappoint. It was fantastic. Of course, Brazil, former gold medalists, and Germany in transition because of the new manager, Joachim Löw, finally leaving after 15 years. I know some German fans will be happy with that. And in the end, 4-2, a great game, 4-2 Brazil, with Everton's Richarlison getting a hat-trick in half an hour, and they were flying along. The Germans looked like a Sunday League team. When was the last time you could say that? They were all over the place. Even the second-string German side, you would say, they're going to be pretty useful. But to be fair, they did come back into it in the second half. They got it back to 3-2, and that was with 10 men. I guess a bit sloppy, you might say, from Brazilians on that one. But they got it back to 3-2 anyway. The Germans kept going, but they obviously left themselves with a mountain to climb. And in the end, on the break, a very good fourth Brazilian goal. So 4-2. Very high scoring game there. Good win for Brazil, although in the end it wasn't as one-sided as it once looked. So there you go. The Germans definitely in transition at the moment, and Brazil will fancy themselves again. Good start for Richarlison, and just to add to the freakish nature of the opening, that was in the men's, by the way. I should have said that. I switched genders there without saying. But yeah, freak result yesterday in the women's. Well, it wasn't free. I mean, it's no surprising, but it's just this fantasy football scoreline you very rarely get. It was 10-3 to Holland against Zambia. Poor old Zambia. I feel bad for the newbies, but 10-3 to Holland. It's the result of legends, even though you don't like to see a team suffer like that. Just to say the words 10-3 to Holland, it's got to be. It's addictive. I mean, it's what everyone should be saying to themselves first thing in the morning right now. 10-3 to Holland. It'll make you feel better. Okay, I've rambled enough. I'm looking forward to the Olympics. Let me know your thoughts. What are you looking forward to? What sports will you be watching? And I look forward to seeing some of you along this crazy ride. See you later, guys. Thanks.